The chandeliers of Buckingham Palace glimmered like frozen stars, but beneath that glittering perfection, tension hummed through the air like a live wire. It wasn't the kind of tension people could see on camera. No raised voices, no public outbursts, but something far colder, quieter, and more dangerous. Every smile felt a little too stiff, every laugh a little too forced. Something had shifted inside the royal walls, and everyone could feel it. It all started at the 2025 Community Initiative Awards, a night meant to celebrate kindness, service, and integrity. But that evening, kindness was the last thing lurking in the palace corridors. Catherine, radiant as ever, stood on stage, delivering a heartfelt speech about rebuilding communities and the strength of unity. The audience hung on her every word. Among them sat Tom Parker Bowles, the Queen Consort's son, a man known more for charm than for restraint. His eyes, glassy with arrogance and wine, lingered where they shouldn't have. It was subtle, fleeting to some, but not to William. He saw the disrespect, he saw his wife's dignity being toyed with in front of the entire elite of London, and that was a mistake no one should have made. William's jaw had tightened that night, but he said nothing. Not in public, not yet. He wasn't just a husband, he was the future king. His silence wasn't weakness, it was calculation. But in the quiet hours after the ceremony, when the palace slept and the rain painted streaks across the tall windows, he watched the footage again. There it was. The look, the insolence, the smirk that followed, and worse, the faint smile that curved Camilla's lips when she saw her son's behavior. It wasn't shock or disapproval, it was something else. A challenge. The next morning, William arrived at Clarence's house before sunrise. The guards knew better than to announce him. Camilla sat in her drawing room, her posture perfect, a teacup balanced in her gloved hand as if she'd been expecting him. "You saw it, didn't you?" he asked flatly, not bothering with greetings. Camilla's reply came smooth as honey but sharp as a dagger. "Tom was simply being Tom," she said, eyes glinting. "And Catherine? Well, she does draw attention. Men notice her." The words hit harder than he expected. It wasn't just offense, it was blame. She wasn't protecting her son, she was humiliating his wife. William leaned forward, his wife low. "If you ever suggest that my wife invited that disrespect again, you'll regret it." For a moment, the mask slipped, Camilla's smile faltered. She had underestimated him. Days passed, and whispers began crawling through the media like rot beneath gold. Anonymous sources claimed Catherine had grown unstable, fragile, even jealous of Camilla's influence. Tabloids published exclusive insights about her supposed breakdowns and emotional outbursts. William recognized the pattern instantly, the same smear tactics that had once destroyed his mother's peace. He knew exactly who had lit this fire. Behind the scenes, he activated his private network, the men and women loyal not to the crown, but to him. Within days, files landed on his desk, emails, money transfers, insider tips linking Camilla's advisors to journalists who were paid to push false narratives. Every piece of evidence felt like a brick in a wall closing around the Queen Consort. Catherine, meanwhile, refused to crumble. She faced the press with that calm, steady grace that drove her enemies mad. The more they tried to paint her as weak, the stronger she appeared. Her charity visits drew massive crowds, her composure made headlines, and her silence spoke volumes. But when she looked into William's eyes at night, she saw the storm brewing, and she knew he wasn't done yet. By the time winter settled over London, William had a plan. It wasn't rage anymore, it was strategy. Camilla had her chessboard, he had his own, and this time the game would end on his terms. The palace gates had never seemed so tall, their iron bars gleaming under a pale winter sun that offered no warmth. Inside, the air carried that faint metallic chill of control. Polished surfaces, stiff uniforms, and centuries of silence. William stood in his private office at Kensington, the kind of room where every clock tick felt like judgment. On the desk lay a stack of documents bound with a red ribbon, and beside them a USB drive no one but him had seen. The file contained everything: proof of manipulation, secret payments, digital fingerprints leading straight to Camilla's closest aides, every piece of it built toward one undeniable truth. The Queen Consort had waged a quiet war against his wife. James, his security military chief, stood by the door. He had the unshakable calm of a man who'd seen too many storms. "It's all verified," he said, voice low. "Financials, messages, timing, everything lines up. Marcus Reed and Eleanor Vaughn are the key conduits. Both move under Camilla's orders." William didn't look up. He already knew. His blue eyes were fixed on the portrait of his mother hanging opposite the window. A reminder that some legacies were paid for in suffering. "She thought I wouldn't notice," he muttered. "She forgot I learned from the best." Meanwhile, inside Clarence's house, Camilla sat before the fire, wine glass trembling slightly in her hand, though her face betrayed no fear. Across from her sat the same advisors William had now exposed. "You've pushed too far," Marcus said, nervously adjusting his cufflinks. "The prince's office is already probing." Camilla smiled faintly, her voice smooth as velvet. "William plays soldier," she replied. "But soldiers don't win in palaces. Diplomats do." Her words dripped with the certainty of a woman who had clawed her way up every marble staircase in that building. "He's too predictable. He'll confront. I'll deny, and Charles will defend." It's the same old cycle. What she didn't know was that the cycle had already broken. William wasn't looking for confrontation anymore, he wanted exposure. Quiet, undeniable, devastating. When the Royal Council summoned its members for an urgent assembly, no one dared speak of why. They already knew. The tension seeped through the corridors long before the meeting began. The room was a cavern of history. Marble floors, gold-trimmed walls, and silence heavy enough to choke. Charles sat at the head, his eyes weary. Camilla, regal in a deep burgundy gown, radiated poise. William entered last, tall and calm, carrying the red-bound folder. He didn't bow, didn't smile. He simply placed the documents on the table and said, "Before we pretend this is still a family matter, I suggest everyone read." The silence broke under the rustle of papers. The pages spoke for him. Screenshots of encrypted chats, lists of payment trails, copies of confidential memos approved by Camilla's office. The words were enough to strip any illusion of innocence. Anne leaned back, arms folded, her expression carved in stone. Edward's eyes shifted downward, his discomfort palpable. Even Charles's breath hitched when he saw the headline drafts prepared weeks before they were published. Camilla's voice sliced through the tension. "This is slander," she snapped, her tone brittle. "You think I'd waste my time on gossip columns?" William's gaze didn't waver. "You didn't waste time," he said quietly. "You weaponized it." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Anne spoke, crisp, cutting, unflinching. "You brought disgrace to this crown for your son's sins." The words echoed like thunder. Camilla's mask slipped, her hands trembled. Children closed his eyes, torn between loyalty and the undeniable truth staring him in the face. The meeting adjourned with no verdict, only silence, but everyone knew what had begun. William hadn't just drawn a line, he'd redrawn the battlefield. The week that followed was eerily calm, like the pause before thunder splits the sky. Buckingham Palace moved through its routines with mechanical precision, guards changing shifts, secretaries walking briskly, cameras flashing outside the gates, but behind those gates, silence ruled. Camilla's office door remained closed for days. Her advisors were suddenly on leave. Rumors rippled through the staff like whispers through tall grass, none daring to say her name aloud. In a place built on appearances, absence screamed the loudest. William, meanwhile, buried himself in duty. His mornings began before dawn, reviewing documents, signing initiatives, and preparing for public appearances. But his real focus lay in something far greater, restoring the integrity his family had nearly lost. The monarchy couldn't be seen as a stage for personal feuds. It had to represent discipline, fairness, and truth. And that truth had finally started to shine through the cracks. The moment of reckoning arrived quietly, without ceremony or warning. An internal memo was circulated through the Royal Communications Office. Tom Parker Bowles will be stepping back from all royal engagements indefinitely. There were no speeches, no explanations, no photographs. He simply disappeared from the public calendar as if erased by royal decree. Those close enough to know the reason didn't dare speak of it. His disgrace was meant to vanish without echo, but inside the palace, everyone understood that William's patience had ended. Camilla was next. Her absence from official official events was explained as private health concerns, but insiders knew better. She had lost her footing, not through scandal in the press, but through the quiet suffocation of isolation. The very system she had mastered turned its back on her. The staff avoided her halls, advisors stopped calling, and even Charles seemed trapped in his own silence. He would sit by her window, staring into the gray London skyline, wine untouched, mind replaying the choices that led to her downfall. The royal family, under William's guidance, shifted its image almost overnight. Public trust, once fragile, began to strengthen. Catherine became the face of renewal, graceful, unwavering, and kind. Crowds gathered at her charity appearances as if seeking warmth from her presence. Headlines no longer questioned her stability, they praised her resilience. The princess who endured with grace, one paper declared, its tone reverent instead of cruel. At a children's hospital in Manchester, she knelt beside a young girl battling leukemia. "You're very brave," she whispered, smiling softly. The moment was captured by photographers, and within hours it flooded every platform, not as gossip, but as hope. William watched that photo later in his study, the flicker of a proud smile crossing his face. For all the chaos that had shaken their world, this image reminded him why he fought. A few days later, the royal council convened again, this time in private. The tone was different. No shouting, no accusations, only quiet acceptance. Charles sat at the head once more, looking older than ever, his crown of silver hair glinting beneath the soft chandelier light. He glanced at William, then at the empty seat once belonging to Camilla. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "the family finally remembers what this institution should stand for." William gave a slight nod, saying nothing. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the palace walls, Catherine and William walked through the gardens hand in hand. The roses were bare, their stems dusted with frost, but the air felt lighter than it had in months. Catherine looked up at him, her voice calm but certain. "It's over," she said. William shook his head gently. "No," he replied, eyes fixed on the fading horizon. "It's just the beginning, the start of a new crown built on truth." The wind carried their words into the dusk, mingling with a rustle of history itself.